Black waitress accused by Mafia boss went to court without lawyer until his son exposed everything. Amora, a dedicated black waitress, had spent years serving at an exclusive restaurant owned by the notorious Falcone crime family. She was suddenly accused of stealing the legendary Serpent's Eye diamond, a priceless heirloom. Without a lawyer, she was dragged into court, humiliated before the world, and left utterly alone against the immense power of the mob. Everyone believed she was guilty, for the word of the powerful carried more weight than her tears and her truth. But in the middle of the trial, when it seemed nothing could save her, the unexpected happened. The Falcone's own young son, Nico, who loved her like a mother, broke free from his handler, ran into the courtroom, and revealed a shocking secret, changing the entire case forever. Amora had worked at the Falcone's private restaurant for many years. Every day she served meals in the opulent dining rooms of their estate, took care of the patrons, and always ensured everything was perfect. She was quiet, respectful, and deeply trusted by the staff and even the formidable family themselves. Over the years, she grew particularly close to little Nico, the young son of Vincent Falcone. Nico loved Amora very much and saw her as a steady, warm presence in his tumultuous life. Vincent Falcone, Nico's father, was a feared man who had taken over the family business years ago. He was raised in a world of silence and loyalty, and his word was law. His wife, Isabella, was a cold and calculating woman who liked to control everything and everyone around her. Isabella had never liked Amora, viewing her closeness to Nico as a threat, though she never voiced it openly. One day, the Serpent's Eye diamond suddenly went missing from the family safe. It had been in the Falcone family for generations, a symbol of their power, and Isabella immediately blamed Amora. She claimed Amora was the only outsider with enough access to have taken it. Amora was shocked and confused by the accusation. Isabella didn't wait for an investigation. She went straight to Vincent and insisted Amora must have stolen the diamond, pointing out Amora's modest background as motive enough. Vincent, though privately harboring doubts, trusted his wife's judgment. She had always been cunning and persuasive. Amora tried to explain that she would never do such a thing. She begged them to look again, suggesting it might be misplaced, but Isabella refused to listen. Vincent looked at Amora, and even without real proof, he gave in to his wife's pressure. He told Amora she was finished at the estate. Amora felt her heart shatter. After everything she had done for that family, they believed she was a thief. The police were called, officers loyal to the Falcone family. Amora was taken to the local precinct, and the community watched as she was escorted out in tears, feeling humiliated and betrayed. Her only crime had been working honestly for a family that now discarded her. At the police station, Amora sat in silence while officers asked her loaded questions. They didn't formally arrest her, but they treated her as if her guilt was a foregone conclusion. Amora had no lawyer, no money, and no one to speak on her behalf. Her world was falling apart. She was allowed to go home but was told she would have to appear in court. The news spread like wildfire, and people in the neighborhood began to whisper behind her back. Her name was now linked to a high-profile theft, though she had never stolen anything in her life. Amora returned to her small apartment and cried for hours, thinking about how her life had been destroyed in a single day. The worst part wasn't the court summons or the public shame, it was losing Nico. She missed his smile, his questions, and his hugs. She had cared for him like her own, a beacon of innocence in a dark world. Now, she didn't know if she would ever see him again. In the days that followed, Clara received a formal letter from the court. She was being officially accused of grand larceny and had to prepare for trial. She had never been in a courtroom and didn't have the money for a lawyer. She felt completely lost. She tried to contact old friends, but no one wanted to get involved. They were terrified of the Falcone family. They were rich, powerful, and dangerous. Amora felt small and powerless. Despite the pain, Amora received one small ray of hope. A few days after the accusation, she heard a knock on her door. It was Nico. He had slipped away from his bodyguard and come to see her. He hugged her tightly and started to cry, saying he didn't believe what his mother said. He told Amora he missed her and that the estate wasn't the same without her. Amora cried, too. Nico had brought her a small drawing of them holding hands. That moment gave her strength. Even though she had lost everything, she had not lost Nico's love. It gave her the courage to keep going. The day of the trial was approaching, and Amora knew she had to find a way to defend herself. She visited a legal aid center in the city, hoping for a miracle. There, she met a young, idealistic lawyer named Maya who promised to do what she could, even if she wasn't experienced in such high-stakes cases. Amora gave her all the information she had. They went over the events of the day the diamond disappeared. She remembered everything, but it wasn't much. Amora didn't know if it would be enough, but she was determined to tell the truth. She was going to face the Falcones in court, not as a servant, but as a woman who refused to be crushed by injustice. While Amora tried to understand how she had ended up in such a terrible situation, the Falcone family prepared to win. Amora had a novice lawyer, no money, and no idea how to navigate a courtroom. On the other side, Isabella Falcone wasted no time. She went straight to the family's lawyer, Mr. Russo, a man known for making problems disappear for a price. Isabella instructed him to ensure Amora was found guilty in front of everyone. She wanted the trial to be a public spectacle, a demonstration of the Falcones' power. Soon, newspapers began publishing headlines calling Amora a thief. News websites and radio shows repeated the same narrative: Waitress steals from Falcones. Amora watched her name being destroyed before the trial even began. Vincent Falcone noticed how quickly everything was moving and how his wife was handling the case. Although he didn't agree with all her decisions, he remained silent. Deep down, he felt uneasy. He remembered Amora's devotion to Nico, how she always worked hard and never gave them reason to doubt her. But at the same time, he trusted his wife. He didn't know what to believe. Vincent tried to avoid the media and focused on his business, but the guilt lingered. He was stuck between his loyalty to his wife and a growing unease about Amora. Still, he chose silence. Nico sensed the tension in the house. Amora was gone, and no one would explain why. He asked his father many times where Amora was, but Vincent never gave a clear answer. Isabella told Nico not to worry, saying Amora had done something bad and wouldn't be coming back. Nico didn't believe it. He remembered how Amora used to sing to him and help him with his homework. He missed her warm smile. Nothing felt the same without her. While the Falcone family prepared for a decisive victory, the real investigation was ignored. Amora remembered there were security cameras near the room where the safe was kept, but when Maya asked about the footage, no one gave her a straight answer. Eventually, she learned something strange: the camera aimed at the study had been turned off at the exact time the jewel went missing. That detail seemed crucial, but nobody was interested. Isabella didn't let anything slow her down. She pushed for the trial date to be moved up. Her lawyer followed her instructions perfectly, preparing statements to show how trustworthy the Falcone family was and how suspicious Amora had always been, even without evidence. Isabella spoke to journalists and made off-the-record comments that suggested Amora had a troubled past, which wasn't true. As the trial day approached, Amora felt a heavy pressure on her shoulders. The newspapers still called her a criminal. Meanwhile, Isabella made sure the courtroom would be full of reporters and Falcone associates, a clear message that no one steals from the family and gets away with it. Vincent still didn't speak. Nico stayed quiet, too, but he thought about Amora every night. On the morning of the trial, Amora stood up with fear in her heart but ready to face everything. Amora arrived at the courthouse wearing a simple dress, the only formal thing she owned. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her back straight. Inside the courtroom, people whispered as she walked past. She sat alone, holding a small folder of notes. The judge walked in, and the trial began. On the other side of the room, Mr. Russo stood up. He had been hired by the Falcones and was ready to execute their plan. He called Amora an opportunist, someone who got too comfortable inside a world of wealth and thought she could take what didn't belong to her. As the prosecutor continued, he painted Amora as someone who had taken advantage of the Falcones' trust. He used words like ungrateful, calculated, and disloyal. The courtroom was quiet as he spoke, and many nodded along as if everything made sense. The prosecutor showed photos of the missing diamond and described its immense value. He explained how Amora had access to the estate and made it sound like only she could have taken it. Then he brought in witnesses, employees from the estate. Most of them gave testimony that supported the Falcone's side, their fear palpable. Some even altered their words slightly to match what the prosecutor needed. The truth didn't seem important. Vincent sat near his wife, his arms crossed and his eyes staring at the floor. He didn't speak or even look at Amora. He had memories of her being kind and loyal, but he was conflicted. His wife had told him that justice needed to be done, that Amora had betrayed them. If he spoke up, it would defy Isabella, and he didn't have the strength to do that. Meanwhile, Isabella sat beside him with confidence, whispering comments to her lawyer and acting as if the outcome was already decided. In the back of the courtroom, Nico sat with a bodyguard. He watched the adults argue and accuse. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. Amora, the person who once held his hand when he was scared, was now standing in the middle of all this. He didn't believe she had done anything wrong. He had to sit quietly, watching the people he loved fight in a way he didn't understand. When it was Amora's turn to speak, the courtroom went quiet. She stood up slowly and walked to the witness stand. She took a deep breath, looked at the judge, and spoke clearly. She said she never touched anything that didn't belong to her. She explained how she had worked on that estate for years, giving her best every day. She said she had loved Nico like her own child and never imagined hurting the family. Her voice cracked once, but she didn't cry. She spoke from the heart. She said she knew people had already made up their minds, but she had to say the truth anyway. As she talked, most people didn't react. It was as if her words had no weight. When she finished, she sat down again, alone, as if nothing she said mattered. As the trial continued, small inconsistencies started to appear in the case. A few people close to the Falcone family were suddenly unavailable to speak. The head of security, who had worked at the estate for decades, was mysteriously sent on an extended vacation when Amora's lawyer, Maya, tried to reach him for a statement. He was unreachable. Inside the estate, things weren't as calm as they looked. Nico had been paying close attention. He started remembering something that had happened the night the diamond disappeared. He had seen someone moving around near his father's study when he got up for a glass of water. But when he told his mother what he saw the next morning, she told him it was just a dream and not to mention it again. At the time, he believed her. But now, after seeing Amora in court, he wasn't so sure. Nico tried to talk to his father, Vincent, about what he remembered, but Vincent seemed distracted and didn't listen. Isabella began noticing that Nico was acting differently. She decided to act quickly. She started spoiling him with new video games and treats, promising him trips. Behind all the affection, Isabella was trying to keep control. She feared that if Nico spoke up, someone might start asking questions. When Nico mentioned again that he remembered something from the night of the theft, Isabella smiled and told him it was better not to say anything. She said people might get confused and blame him. Scared, Nico stopped asking and kept his thoughts to himself. Maya began reviewing everything she could about the case. She stayed up late reading court transcripts and writing down every detail Amora shared. She noticed how many statements seemed inconsistent. She also found it strange that no one had questioned why the main security camera was turned off that night. Maya was young, but she believed in justice. She went to the courthouse to file the paperwork to officially represent Amora. The judge agreed, warning Maya that this case was risky. Maya didn't back down. She visited the courthouse archives and asked for every document related to the Falcone estate and the supposed theft. As she read through the reports, she noticed small mistakes that didn't make sense. Times didn't match, and the record about the broken camera seemed too vague. While Maya was busy with her investigation, Nico continued to feel restless. One afternoon, he gathered his courage and asked his mother again about the night the diamond disappeared. He said he remembered something and wanted to know if Amora was really guilty. Isabella lowered her book, stared at him coldly, and told him to stop asking. When he asked again why she was near the study that night, Isabella's face hardened. She warned him that if he kept insisting, she would send him away to a boarding school far from home. Nico froze. The thought of leaving his father terrified him. He knew his grandmother was hiding something, but he also knew she was dangerous. Vincent, meanwhile, was under growing pressure. One night, he sat alone in his office and opened old security recordings stored on his computer. He found a video of Amora with Nico taken shortly after his own mother's death. In the video, Amora was sitting with the boy, comforting him while he cried. Watching the scene, Vincent felt something shift inside him. He realized Amora had been more than an employee, she had been like family. For the first time, he seriously doubted his wife's certainty. Maya's search led her to an important discovery. She managed to speak with someone who had attended a charity gala a few days after the diamond supposedly disappeared. That person told her they saw Isabella Falcone wearing the exact same diamond at the event. Maya was shocked. If the diamond had been on Isabella's neck, then it was never stolen. She quickly looked for photos from the event and found one picture showing Isabella in a dark dress with the diamond shining around her neck. Excited, she saved it. But the next day, when she checked again, the photo was gone. The website had removed it. Maya realized Isabella's influence reached far beyond the courtroom. The loss of the evidence frustrated Maya, but it didn't stop her. She returned to Amora with the story, and it only made her more certain. On the third day of the trial, the atmosphere inside the courtroom was tense. The trial was moving forward like the other days, with the prosecution continuing to attack Amora's character. Suddenly, the heavy doors of the courtroom opened and Nico slipped inside, having escaped from his handler. People turned in surprise as the boy ran straight to Amora. Without hesitation, he wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her tightly as if to protect her. Then, in a loud voice, he said, "Stop. I know who did this. It was Mama." The entire courtroom froze in shock. The sudden outburst created chaos. The judge called for order. Amora froze, holding Nico close. Isabella's face turned pale, and Vincent immediately stood up. The judge asked for the boy to be removed, but Vincent interrupted. He stepped forward, his voice shaking as he said that Nico should be allowed to speak. He explained that his son had been quiet for weeks, and now he needed to be heard. After a short hesitation, the judge agreed. Nico looked around nervously, then at Amora before speaking again. His small voice filled the silence. He said that one night after waking up for water, he saw his mother, Isabella, in the study. He saw her holding the shiny diamond and hiding it inside a secret compartment in her vanity. He also heard her whisper to herself that the waitress would be an easy target. His words made everyone in the room go silent again. Mr. Russo quickly tried to take control, arguing that Nico was just a child. But Nico did not back down. He insisted he was telling the truth. He described the secret compartment and repeated the exact words she had said, "The waitress will be an easy target." The details were too specific to ignore. Amora stood frozen, her heart racing. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness this time, but from relief. For the first time since the nightmare began, someone had told the truth out loud. Maya immediately reacted, rising to her feet and telling the judge that Nico's statement was crucial and must be investigated. The judge agreed to pause the session and ordered an inquiry. Vincent, standing nearby, finally dared to meet Amora's eyes, and what he saw there made him lower his head in shame. He realized how blind he had been. Isabella, who until then had controlled everything, showed her first signs of weakness. She tried to stay calm, but her confident expression was gone. The judge announced that the trial would be temporarily suspended. He said Nico's testimony raised serious questions that needed to be investigated before moving forward. With the investigation now open, Vincent decided he could no longer stay silent. He waited until Nico was asleep and then went to confront his wife. He closed the door and demanded the truth. Isabella looked at him with sharp eyes, but she realized her control over him was slipping. The conversation quickly turned into a heated argument. Vincent accused his mother of destroying Amora's life. Isabella answered by saying Amora had been growing too close to Nico. She admitted she felt threatened. She explained that she never intended to cause so much damage. Her original plan was only to scare Amora, to remind her of her place. But her story felt weak. Vincent listened in silence, devastated. He walked out of the room in shock. For years he had trusted his wife completely, but now he felt betrayed. That night, Vincent made a decision. He went to Isabella's dressing room, not to argue, but to search. He opened drawers and finally found the hidden compartment Nico had described. Inside, he saw the serpent's eye diamond, but something was wrong. It didn't feel right. He also found a pawn ticket from a high-end jeweler and a flawless replica of the diamond. The truth hit him. Isabella had pawned the real diamond to cover a massive gambling debt and was planning to frame Amora for the theft of a fake. Vincent stared at the contents, realizing this was the proof that could finally change everything. The next morning, Vincent didn't hesitate. He took the evidence to the courthouse and handed it over. He explained where he had found it and how it confirmed Nico's testimony. The news spread quickly. Headlines changed overnight. Instead of calling Amora a thief, the media began to focus on Isabella Falcone's deception. When court resumed, Maya presented the discovery of the fake diamond and the pawn ticket. The judge allowed Amora to speak again, and she told her story with more confidence. The courtroom listened closely. The entire case shifted, and Amora was no longer seen as the accused, but as a victim of a powerful family's lies. The judge finally declared that the case against Amora was dismissed. The courtroom filled with noise. As soon as the decision was spoken, Nico ran across the room and jumped into Amora's arms, holding her tightly. "You're my family," he shouted. The words touched everyone present. Amora hugged Nico with all her strength, tears streaming down her face. Outside the courthouse, the media exploded with the news. Headlines now described Amora as brave, strong, and innocent. Comment sections filled with people apologizing for judging too quickly. For Amora, however, the noise wasn't important. All she wanted was her name cleared. She told Maya she didn't plan to sue the family. Her only goal was to walk freely without shame. Vincent took the opportunity to address the press. He admitted publicly that he had failed Amora by believing his wife without proof. He apologized directly to Amora, not as a legal strategy, but as a man who had been wrong. Isabella, however, could not escape the consequences. The judge announced that she would be called to a new hearing to answer for her actions. She was escorted out of the courtroom by her lawyer, who avoided the press. Amora watched from a distance, not with anger, but with a sense of closure. As the day ended, Amora walked out of the courthouse free, holding Nico's hand. Justice had finally begun to restore what had been broken. When the court reconvened, Isabella made one last attempt to regain control, but her arguments fell apart. It was revealed that this was not the first time she had accused an employee of theft without proof. A pattern of behavior showed her obsession with control and her willingness to destroy others. The prosecutor asked for a criminal investigation against Isabella, listing charges such as perjury, defamation, and fraud. The judge officially declared Amora innocent, clearing her of all charges. For months, she had been called a thief. But now the nation saw her as a victim of lies and cruelty. The days after the verdict brought Amora unexpected attention. Job offers arrived, but she politely declined each one. She needed time to heal. Emily's role in the trial did not go unnoticed, and law firms reached out with offers, but she remained humble, saying her greatest reward was seeing Amora free. The Falcone family faced a new reality. Vincent, regretting his silence, decided to rebuild his values and his relationship with Nico. Isabella was left isolated, facing her own criminal charges. The woman who once controlled everything had lost her power. When Isabella faced her own trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The judge found her guilty. Her sentence was strict, house arrest and a heavy financial penalty. Vincent watched, feeling a deep sadness, but knowing it was necessary. Once court was adjourned, Vincent officially took control of the Falcone businesses, promising to lead with fairness and respect. His first step was to approach Amora personally. He offered her a substantial sum of money as restitution, enough to start a new life. Amora accepted, but on one condition: she would use it to open her own restaurant, a safe and welcoming place far from the Falcones' world. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one she chose freely. The restaurant became a living example that truth could survive even against wealth and influence, and Amora's name now carried respect, not shame. Nico adjusted to the changes better than anyone. He still spent time with his father, but he preferred being with Amora, telling her once that she was his real mom in his heart. Vincent supported their bond, understanding that Nico's happiness depended on feeling safe and loved. As the months passed, Amora learned to breathe again. The fear that once followed her disappeared. One evening, after a long day at her bustling new restaurant, Amora stepped outside and watched the sunset. The colors in the sky reminded her of everything she had survived. She was free, and she didn't need to shout or fight anymore. The truth had spoken for itself, and it had won.